School is in. But are you really ready to learn? Open your eyes to a new day in education with The Awakening Educator, a program specifically designed to explore a new, mindful way of educating our youth. Learn about social emotional learning, new modalities of teaching, and the most relevant topics in education with your hosts, Susan Andrian and Megan Sweet. Susan and Megan will take you inside the issues by looking at them from different points of view, from policies and research to teaching models that are actually used in schools. There's never a dull moment in this classroom. You can catch The Awakening Educator every other Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern on Spreaker, Facebook Live, WDJY 99.1 FM, WTTA 101.2, Talk 10 FM, and many other platforms. You can also watch it on our app anytime from anywhere in the world at uimediaapp.com. Have any questions you'd like to ask? Maybe you have knowledge you'd like to share. Call 678-495-4345 and share your thoughts live on air. Grab a pen and paper and get ready to open your textbooks and minds to a new way of learning on The Awakening Educator.
Hi, and welcome to The Awakening Educator. My name is Megan Sweet.
And I'm Susan Andrian.
And this is a show by educators for educators, talking to you about the issues that are most relevant to those of us who work with kids and in schools.
Yeah.
So we want to thank you. This is also our premiere first episode, our first show. So we're really excited to have you all here. And we want to welcome everyone on the UI Media Network.
Hello, friends at WDJY 99.1 FM.
Hello, friends from WTTA 101.2 FM in Kentucky and Ohio.
And welcome, Metro Atlanteans on Talk 10 FM.
For today's episode, we thought you would just like to get to know us a little bit better. It'd be useful to know a little bit about your two co-hosts and what we're about and why we're here. So we're going to spend a little bit of time just getting to know us. We promise this will be the only episode where we spend so much time talking about ourselves, but we're going to launch right in with a little bit of our background, and we're going to start with Susan.
Yeah, so I'm so excited to be here. It's been a long journey getting here. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I got here, my journey. I started my career way back in Massachusetts. And I remember my first experience really being interested in community and interested in children when I was an intern at the Caucus of Women Legislators in Massachusetts, creating fact sheets about HIV and AIDS and women. And in that experience, I really started to understand how policy and practice impact communities and families. So, and I was pretty young, and I was in school. From there, I went to the University of Massachusetts for the College of Public and Community Services with a focus on youth development. And I had the opportunity to go to Guatemala and do accompaniment work there, and fell in love with the community while I was there. Came back and became the community liaison and coordinator for low-income housing development in Brockton, Massachusetts, and Taunton and Fall River. And at that point, I think, fell in love with being a part of community and the impact of being in community and how that can change outcomes for kids and families. I met my husband at that point, and we dated for about a year before we packed up all of our stuff via Mexico, came to California, and started working in a charter school in Oakland. And I was the extended day person. And what I realized at that experience was that I really needed more education, that the needs of the community that I was wanting to serve were really great. And the level of trauma that they were experiencing was showing up in ways that I was unprepared to support. So I went back to grad school, went to New College to get my psychology degree, graduated. And after graduation, got married to my now husband years after we had moved to California. And at that point, my first day as a clinician was at a middle school in Oakland, an Oakland public school that no longer is open. It's one of the closure schools. My first day as a clinician was September 11th, 2001. which was a pretty big day to be a therapist. So I woke up in the morning and I saw what was happening on TV, and I ran in and woke up my husband Chris, and he said, and I said, what should I do? Should I go in? And he said, well, aren't you the mental health person? Don't you think you should be there? I said, right, I'm the mental health person. I got to be there. And I did, and that was my first day on that campus. I spent 5 years, and I learned so much from that experience. And from there, I went to the county. So I was working for Lincoln Child Center at that time, now Lincoln Families in Oakland. I learned so much from that experience. And I went to the county and worked in a middle school. And really, that's when I really started to get connected with restorative justice and restorative practices, and was able to bring those practices to this middle school in Oakland, where it's still thriving now. I was really grateful to be trained under Rita Alfred, who's one of my mentors. So I spent 5 years there, and life happens, and it brought me to deciding maybe I needed something different. So I went back to Lincoln Child Center as a program manager, and I had the opportunity to supervise mental health programs in schools in Oakland. And in that experience, I was able to really engage in the summer programs and to think creatively about what does school-based mental health look like, and how do we partner with academics? How do we make sure it's integrated? How do we start to really shift the systems and that were causing our young people to really struggle? Like, why are we seeing these behaviors? Why are the same kids struggling? And so I had an opportunity to really work with the schools and the partners to think creatively about what can we do to change the outcomes for these kids. And then I was there for 5 years and had the opportunity to go back to the district on a central office level, where I had a lot more freedom and I felt like I could make some more impact. And that I've been there for about 5 years, the Oakland Unified School District, as a partner. I'm currently working in a network supporting 19 schools, and we're really focused on how do we improve the conditions for learning? How do we start to think about trauma-informed practices and weaving together all of the things that we know create an environment where children and families can thrive and be connected. And so this has been my lifelong work. Started in Massachusetts. There were so many other steps along the way: violence prevention work, culturally responsive work. And I am so grateful for this journey that has brought me to here. And Megan and I have worked together for a number of years. And from the moment we connected, I just have felt so lucky to be in partnership with Megan, and so happy to be on this journey with you together and to bring voices to America around education and what it can be and what we can do.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Susan. I learned some new things about you.
Yeah.
That's great. So I grew up out here in California. I grew up in Berkeley, a kid of hippie parents just after the 60s out here in California. And I knew I wanted to be a teacher about age 10 or so. So really early on. And I wanted to be a teacher because I actually experienced, I had a hard time in school. I had a hard time learning. I was often really confused and lost about what was going on in the classroom. I had a couple of really amazing transformative teachers, and several that were really not that great or not that great for me. And so I knew I wanted to be a teacher from the jump. And when I went to college, I studied history, which I've always really loved and been curious about. And so I went to college out here at UC Davis and studied history. And literally the day after graduating from college, I drove down 4 hours from Davis to Stanford and got my master's degree and my teaching credential from Stanford. And so I was in the classroom teaching at 21 and had my own set of kids at 22.
Wow.
And so I'm now going to be 47 in a few months, I guess. So I've got 25 years in at this point in teaching and in education. I stayed in the classroom for about 10 years. I started out teaching high school, and then I decided that I wanted a little bit more of a challenge. And so I spent a couple of years teaching special education, and I really loved that. What I saw with special education, though, that I was concerned about was the lack of money and the lack of access and resources for our kids. And so pretty quickly, I knew that I wanted to go back to school and do more and study education finance and finance reform. Everybody who's in education knows that money is a big issue and our access to money is a big problem. So I wanted to go back and understand a little bit more about why my students weren't getting what they needed, let alone all the other kids that I was serving in my school. Because I started teaching so young, I moved around a little bit. That was my way of exploring because I had responsibilities in classrooms at such an early age. I lived in San Diego for a couple of years to you and to Massachusetts. I even taught a year in Dartmouth Middle School. So I spent most of my time teaching in middle school. And I taught in Dartmouth Middle School, which is just outside of Fall River and New Bedford in Massachusetts. Not only did it's interesting you talk about September 11th. That was a really noteworthy place for me too. And I was in Massachusetts during September 11th. And for me, I was in the classroom. It was in the middle of the day already. And so I was on a break and I walked by. I wasn't planning on telling this story, but it's so interesting. I walked by the school office to get something. I don't know what it was. And when I walked in, I saw the second plane go into the second twin tower. And then it was time for me to go back to class.
Wow.
So I walked back to class holding that and not knowing what to do and where to go. So I wish I'd found you way back then. Yeah, because I didn't know what to do with such a huge thing. And my mind was trying to wrap around, like, is this a movie? Is this real? And then just how that unfolded over the rest of the school year. And living on the East Coast during all of that was really different for me. So yeah, it's an interesting connection.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I taught for 10 years. And then I decided I wanted to go back and get my doctoral degree in education finance reform. So that's what I did next. I went to a school out here in California called Mills College. And I did two things at the same time. I actually got my tier 1 credential, which basically lets me be an administrator. And so I went and I was an assistant principal at an elementary school out here in California. And it was one of the most failing schools in our school district in Oakland. And it was a very sad and unhappy place to be. And we weren't serving our students or our families very well. And so I was with a team of a really great principal and a really amazing family and teaching staff, and we redesigned the school. And now it's one of the most successful schools in the district. And that's something that's a great point of pride for me and humility. I was only there for a brief period of time, but I learned a lot from that experience. One of the things I learned was that change has to take place at that level, at the school level, or at the place where the family and community can come together and share their viewpoints. And that change is totally possible. So I often hear people say that change is hard and they don't want to do change. And for me, because I had that experience and have seen how successful it can be, I'm just doggedly determined to create change whenever we can. So I did the assistant principal thing while finishing up my doctoral degree. And while I studied education finance, and that's definitely always been a love and an interest for me, what I studied more was how do you create change in education settings? So what are the things that need to be in place to be effective and successful in putting a change in place? And so it was very appropriate and aligned that I was at a school creating change at the same time. I got to apply what I was learning on the ground in that moment. I've worked at the state level, so I've worked at lots of different levels in the county level in my career, but for you and I both, Oakland is always a place where we keep returning to. And so I've spent the last 10 years of my career working in Oakland, mostly helping other school communities to go through change too. So I've got to go back to my school that I created and make it a K-8, and I've gotten to work with other schools. We've gone through some really hard things at that time as well. And I've just learned a lot. And in that journey of learning, I've just come to deeply appreciate educators and families and the community and the connections that can happen together and the power of being together. And at the end of that journey, the last few years, I got to find you. And you're right, Susan. It was one of those things. It's rare as an adult to find someone that you connect with and instantly are in sync with. And you're that person for me. And I'm so deeply grateful. And I'm really grateful for being on this journey with you as we start on this next adventure, which is the Awakening Educator. And so we're really excited to have this podcast with you. And we'll be getting to get know you all more as we go through the coming weeks.
Yep. We'll see you when we get back from commercial.
Hi, I'm Tim Ray, founder of the United Intentions Foundation, where we offer resources and programs to help others awaken to the power of their intentions. One of the ways we get this great message out is through our UI Media Network, which is a platform for people to share their stories and wisdom on air on how they live a life with intent.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Kramer, and Tim and I united to create systematic change on a global scale. We realized that there were gaps in our educational system. Kids were going home every day being bullied, teen suicide was on the rise, and our Imagine If education program helps students understand that they have the ability to create the world around them through their positive thoughts and inspired action.
As we become adults, we often forget how our imagination creates the world around us every day, and how our intentions and our actions from that imagination determines what we experience.
Our goal as a foundation is to use the money raised to offer it free to kids, parents, adults, other communities, other nonprofit organizations, and teach them that they have the ability to create the world around them.
We are so grateful to this incredible cast of paradigm shifters who are authentically changing this world on a global scale.
Hi, welcome back. We are excited to be here. And Megan?
You can watch us and listen to us, all of our shows, live on our new smart app at unitedmediaapp.com.
If you have any questions or would like to say hello, please give us a call at 678-495-4345.
And connect with us online. You can follow us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube as United Intentions and Higher Intention on Twitter. You can also follow us on The Awakening Educator on Instagram and Twitter as well.
Yes. So we are super excited to be here. And as we said, today's show is going to be a little bit different than our normal format. We really want to introduce you to us and who we are and where we're coming from. And we also want to introduce our format, which we're super excited about. Our show is going to be a bi-weekly podcast here on Fridays at 4 o'clock Atlanta and 1 o'clock West Coast time on Facebook Live. And it's a bi-weekly on topics related to education where we dive deeply into the issues. Every 4 episodes, we're going to explore one topic in detail, covering 4 different areas so that we're really looking at it from, we'll have an episode on policy and research, and then we'll move to practice and perspectives, some practitioner voice. We're going to talk with parents and students, and then we're going to look at models from the field that we can really see how this looks in real life, in real time, and how people are doing innovative and creative things to bring excitement to education.
So when we were coming up with the show format, Susan and I just did like a classic teacher brainstorm with paper and pens and just started to map out what we wanted to be. And it became really clear right away that having this spectrum is really important because it's often the challenge that we face in education, right? It's going from policy to practice. It's often there's a gap there.
Yeah.
That's definitely a lot of what I studied in my doctoral program, but it's what we live in real life all the time. And so we want to make sure that we give the policy because that helps us to give a framing and understand the rationale and why something's there. But then we wanted to talk about to people who are living it in different ways and make it really relatable, but also show different sides of the story that way.
Yeah, because often what we're seeing is when we're talking to students and families, they're seeing one thing, and then when we're looking at a policy level. And so we're really hoping to get this well-rounded perspective of education and what's going on.
Yeah, we're really excited because, you know, a lot of the practitioner things we're hoping to be able to have available to all of you as you listen. So you can get downloadable lesson plans if we're talking to teachers, access to other resources, so that you can really know and learn and take some things away, because we also want this to be really applicable to your lives and what you experience. So
Right. So right now we're going to talk about what the awakening educator means to us.
Yeah.
So I'm going to turn it over to Megan. So Megan, what does the awakening educator mean to you?
What does it mean to me? You know, I think so much of life is about learning. I saw this quote the other day and I'm going to do a terrible job with it, but it was something about people think that life is about the pursuit of happiness, but it's really the pursuit of learning and growing and kind of making meaning of your life. And I think that's true for educators. We all come into education with a sense of what we want to do and with a lot of ideals. And then as we grow and learn and have experiences, much as like what you talked about, that you have experiences that shape and change who you are. It's really beneficial to have a practice of being reflective and opening up to that. And to me, that's kind of this idea of this awakening, that it's not like we're asleep, but it's this ever evolving, growing and deepening our understanding of ourselves in our context, but also understanding our students in our practice. So we hope to keep helping you awaken through this project.
Yeah, and I guess for me, you know, a lot of times in work, in doing trauma work and mental health work and working with families at some of their most vulnerable and painful times in their lives, supporting around homicide, supporting around all kinds of really difficult and impactful things. People will ask me, well, how do you do that? And how do you keep going? And for me, the thing that keeps me going is this awakening piece. I'm always looking for ways. I get excited when I am learning something new or engaging in something that I think is really going to have an impact on students and communities. It's when I get to meet a family or meet a teacher and be a part of this experience in a real vulnerable way that allows us to think in new ways about education. And so my whole career has been this repeated pattern of like getting the opportunity to be involved in something that has the potential, and then really seeing it come to fruition sometimes, a lot of the times, and then sometimes really seeing like, wow, that really didn't work very well. And then being able to go back and be reflective to go on to the next new thing.
Yeah.
So for me, the awakening is like, okay, this is a repetitive process of like reflecting, doing something new, learning something new, trying something new that's based in research, that's based in like good practice, and then figuring out what can we do and how can we learn more to bring better educational opportunities and health outcomes for kids. So
couldn't have said it better.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. So we're hoping you'll hold us accountable to being awakening for you. So if it's not, let us know and push our ideas. And also we really encourage you to, as you come to our Facebook page, there's an opportunity for you to connect with us and give us story ideas and things that you think are really important for us to discuss on air. So we'd like to hear about those things.
Absolutely.
We thought as our first episode that we'd interview each other a little bit. So we're going to do a little back and forth interviewing each other so you can know a little bit more about us versus what we chose to present about ourselves. Now we get to ask each other some questions. So I'm going to go first.
Absolutely.
And you started talking about it. So this is it's apropos for my question, which is, I've had the benefit of watching Susan over the years go into incredibly stressful situations where there are issues unfolding at the school site where kids are in crisis. Staff are often in crisis as well. There's emotions are high and there's just a lot of fear and a lot of worry and people wanting to do the best for kids and keep everybody safe and just not knowing what to do. And I've seen you go into those places time and time and time again. And on the outside, you always look so controlled and calm and confident. And I've often I've been at those schools when stuff was going down. I've been like, oh, good, Susan's here. Okay, everything's gonna be okay. But I'm just wondering what's going on for you when you're walking into those spaces, and what are the thoughts you're having? What are you feeling when you're in that kind of crisis place?
Well, I'm glad I appear calm and confident. And I think sometimes I do in the moment of the crisis, I feel like a sort of try and get a zen. I'll do some breathing and a little, just even taking a few minutes of mindfulness before I walk into the building to get myself prepared. Okay, what do I need to do, and how do I need to hold the space, and what are the tasks that need to happen, and then really thinking about who do I need to attend to, and in what order do I need to attend to them. So often it's getting that, like you said, as a teacher, on that day was September 11th, where you got that news, and then you just had to go right back into the classroom, and there was no one really there to support you. So thinking about how do we connect with the teachers, and often it's really difficult. Hopefully we get the information in enough time for me to be able to meet with them in the morning before they have to go into the classroom and hold the space, and give them some really concrete talking tools. So it's helpful. The first few times I did it was super hard, and I was really panicked. But now I'm sort of like, okay, I know if I give teachers some tools and I give teachers some talking points, they're going to be able to hold that space. The other thing is I feel like I do a good job of attending and to the emotional needs of kids and families and staff when they're in front of me. I just try and be fully present with that, and be okay with their pain. And sort of be just a witness to it. And often that's what they need, is someone to just sit there with them in that space and hold it, and then say, this is what we're going to do. Here's what you can do. This is the practical steps, and it's going to be really difficult, and it's probably going to take us some time to get through this.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks for that, Susan. I really appreciate that. I've benefited from that.
Sure. Oh, good. Thanks. So from the moment we met, I knew that you had a deep understanding of the complexity of each of the school communities that we support, and you really held like the larger systems. You seemed to know what was going on every level, like what's happening in the classroom, and what are the challenges and the strengths of the principal, and what are the larger systems that are at play, because we would be supporting all of these really high need crisis schools. And so wondering, when you're first introduced to a new school community, how do you get that, like, how do you get that deeper understanding? What's like what do you do to get to that place where you're holding all of those different lenses and all of those different perspectives to be able to think strategically about a path forward?
Thanks for that. I never noticed you noticed that, Susan. Thanks. It's interesting. I like to understand the whole picture anyway. So I think that's just a little bit about who I am, because it helps me understand why this last thing is happening. I need to understand the back picture. So there's a little bit of how my mind works, but it was definitely the training I got at Mills when I was doing my program to become an administrator. I had these great professors, one of whom I still am in contact with. Her name is Dr. Diane Cattell, and she taught us to do what she calls empathetic leadership. And that is to try and understand, there's lots of education. It's lots of stuff around creating change and systems change where you need to understand things from different points of view. But I think I just got really habituated to asking questions at all those different levels to be able to understand them better. It definitely was a part of my training at Stanford too, actually. But like, how is it that, all these different pieces are fitting together? And so I tend to interrogate that way and hold the information so I can understand. Yeah, if I can understand why they're having a hard time getting to school, that might help me understand why they're showing up late all the time, or why, and if I can understand why that's an issue, then that helps me to kind of start to pull the pieces apart to understand what the issue is. And so for me, just that comprehensive view is really helpful. I've been around. So that's part of it is like, it probably looks more impressive. Yeah. I think people are like, wow, Megan knows a lot. I'm like, no, I'm old. That's the problem. So I think some of it is just, I've been around and been in the central office for such a long time. And I've had the great fortune of being able to be in the central office, but also being deeply connected to schools and actively supporting schools at the same time. So I could see and act as a bridge between those things a lot, which I think it's actually a big part of my doctoral research, which is partly why I keep positioning myself that way. But it's one of the most crucial levers for creating change and supporting schools is having a strong bond between the central office and the school. So I often try and act as that person. Sorry, this time is flying.
It really is. And I can so relate to what you were just saying, because so much of the work to be able to change the conditions for learning are really based on that. And so the schools that I'm able to connect on that emotional level, where I'm able to sit with sometimes just through the crisis, that I build the trust and build the relationship with the school site, so that when I'm asking them to do something on the systems change piece, I have that social capital to be able to say, you know, if we do this coordination of services or we do this, we're really going to have a better impact. Or if I just come in centrally, there would be no relational trust. So it's that relational trust.
Yeah, that trust is so important. And I love what you said about holding space. I think that's a big part of it too, is people need to be seen and honored. They don't need to be fixed or catered to. They just need to be seen. And that's a really important thing that you do really well. So,
all right. So we're already at our second break, halfway through, and we will see you when we come back. Thank you.
With all of life's stressors, it can be challenging to stay balanced and healthy. Hemp-derived cannabidiol, or CBD supplements such as Plus CBD oil, are becoming well recognized as a key supplement to optimize wellness. By working directly with our own internal system that maintains homeostasis, the endocannabinoid system, CBD, can help restore the body's natural rhythm when we need it the most. Learn more about Plus CBD oil and how to balance the system that balances you from www.pluscbdoil.com. That's www.pluscbdoil.com.
Download the UI Media Smart app at uimediaapp.com to watch and listen to all your favorite shows anytime from anywhere in the world. Shows that enrich, entertain, educate, and feeds the conscious cells throughout your body. We bring you never-heard-before topics in health, inspiration, music, psychics, numerology, current affairs, controversies, and much, much more. So what are you waiting for? Visit www.uimediaapp.com and start raising your frequency now.
hi, and welcome back to The Awakening Educator. We're really excited to have you here. I'm Megan.
Yeah.
You are?
I'm Susan. Thanks for staying with us. And we're also on Binge Networks TV. Visit www.bingenetworks.tv and look for UI TV under channel 12783. Our new channel is featured on Apple TV, Google Play, Roku, Amazon Fire, and more.
The UI Media Network also offers a host of advertising services. So even if your budget is limited and you want your business to grow, give us a call. And you can call us at 678-495-4345 and inquire about advertising your business. You can also call that same number, 678-495-4345, to ask Susan and I a question and connect with us on the show live. And we're really excited for you to be here. So we're going to continue with just a couple more questions, and then we're going to play a game. We're going to
play a game because that's what we do in education. We play games.
We play games and we get silly. So we're going to do one more question each, and then we're going to play a game. And welcome your questions if you call in. So this will come clear to all of you guys really quickly, which is I love people, but I need space. So I often, at the end of the workday, I need to go home and be by myself as much as possible and decompress. And my work often isn't in very stressful situations. It's dealing with people a lot, but I just need to go home and decompress. And for you, I've just seen you over the years. You go from school to school, crisis to crisis, need to need. And so throughout the day, you could be kind of putting out fires or holding space for people or addressing those needs consistently throughout the day. And I'm just wondering how you do that. How do you hold the space for that? And how do you take care of yourself in the midst of all of that care for others?
So several years back, I taught a weekend class at JFK with Ellen Kanoy, who was the professor, and I was her co-teacher, called Self-Care and Clinical Practice. And I remember when I told my husband that I was going to be teaching a class on self-care and the clinical practice, he just about fell out of his seat laughing. He thought it was hysterical. Because I wasn't very good at self-care for a long time, and I've really had to work at cultivating it. I think my go-to is to take care of everybody. And I had the opportunity last night to hear and I'm going to get his name later. I can't remember, but he talks about radical healing, and also the trauma stewardship talks about it. And so all of what we're really understanding is that the need to take care of yourself is really central to being able to continue to do this work, whether you're an educator or a mental health worker or a nurse or a doctor, that the work of giving and taking care of other people requires us to take care of ourselves. And at some point we run out if we don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I have worked really hard over the last few years to cultivate a self-care practice, which includes, going to the YMCA early in the morning, hopefully on a regular basis, doing boot camp at 5:30, which I love, doing some yoga. And I really try and like I said before going into a crisis situation, taking a couple minutes to do some guided meditation or breathing in my car before I walk into a crisis situation. My kids make me really happy. I have a 15-year-old and a 13-year-old, and less and less they're wanting to hang out with me, but they still want to hang out with us. Spending time with my husband. We like good food. We like to laugh together. We watch a lot of movies. So really just trying to spend time with the people that I love, my friends, and my family. And then, just making sure that I am incorporating time to feel joy all the time. It's really about joy.
Yeah, the self-care piece is so important. And it's one of the things we're often the worst at. So I love to hear that you've been incorporating that in.
Yeah. And not always perfectly, but really trying to do a practice.
Yeah.
So my question for you is, and this is one that I didn't really know. When you were a kid, what were the extracurricular things that you were involved in, like art or music or sports, and what were the other things that you did other than school, and how did those shape, or how are those important to who you are now?
What a great question, Susan. What did I do? I was mostly just a punk. I will just admit, I was not a well-behaved child. Some things that I did as a kid, I swam. So I was a swimmer. And so I was on swim teams for a long time, starting from a young age. And so I swam a lot. My parents owned a travel agency when I was growing up.
Oh, wow.
And so we got to go on vacations free everywhere. So that was a big part of or very cheap, but it was all like vacation destinations. So Hawaii or Mexico. I'm not complaining, but it was those kinds of places.
Not the learning trips.
No, not necessarily. They're all called fam trips at the time. So familiarize yourself with a new place, a fam trip. And so we got to go on those a lot. With my friends, we were a funny combination of kind of scrappy. I was a tomboy. My name's Megan, obviously, but for a while I wanted my name to be Chris, and my friends and I all picked gender neutral names. We all had gender neutral names. So that was us. We also had a No Nukes Club. And so,
that's awesome.
Of course. And we'd sell lemonade and cookies, and then buy stickers and stuff. And mostly we just sold it to our family, but we had a No Nukes Club.
It's very Berkeley.
Very Berkeley. I did acting, and actually this is funny that you brought that up, because a friend of mine is, she's a brain scientist and she's really smart. And I told her that the other day. I was like, well, you're just really smart, Emiliana. And she's like, no, I'm not. It's because we were actors as kids. And so we did acting as little kids, and we're in a bunch of plays together. And I think people say that about me too, that I'm smart. And I think it's just that I project that I'm intelligent versus actually being intelligent.
I don't think that's true. I think you're actually very intelligent.
Well, you're sweet. I think I'm just pretending. I think I'm just acting. So that was some of the stuff that we did. I mean, we knocked around and got into a lot of trouble. I got into a lot of trouble at schools. I also got banned from the Spanish department at one of my high schools. And
I think maybe that's why we're so connected.
Bad kids,
bad kids.
Yeah.
Well, bad kids become educators.
It's actually, I'm sure many of you will agree that a lot of us who become educators, we were restless kids.
Yeah.
And for me, I had a hard time learning. So it was really a lot about that. But yeah. Thanks, Susan. Yeah. So we thought we'd play a funny game, and it's called Never Have I Ever. And apparently Ellen does this a lot. I haven't played this. I don't watch Ellen DeGeneres very often, but the deal of the game is that you pull out a strip of paper, and we don't know what they are. So I want to let everybody know now that we have the right to refuse the questions that we're looking at. And this came up from somebody at work. So my job now, I work at this place called Mindful Schools. And one of my colleagues, Allison, used this. So I'm stealing this idea from Allison.
Thanks, Allison.
Thank you, Allison. And so the way Never Have I Ever worked is we'll pull out a question, and then Susan and I answer either a no or a yes. And so we'll just lift it up, and so we don't know from each other what we're going to say.
We'll also say it for those of you in radio.
Yeah, but we'll also say it. But the first thing we'll do is we'll lift it up, and then we'll see what each other says, and then we'll say it out loud. And then if we feel like we want to talk about the topic, we will, or we might just move on, or we'll decide that we don't want to touch the topic at all because it's too much. So that's how we're going to play. So right. Susan, why don't you go first?
All right. Drum roll. Okay. Never have I ever cried watching a movie. No.
We both said yes.
Yes.
What's the first movie you remember crying at?
I'm not sure. I cried a lot of movies. My kids are gonna laugh at this question because they're always making fun of me. I cry at movies. I cry at, I sobbed during This Is Us. I sobbed during, The Fosters. I cry during So You Think You Can Dance. I'm a crier. I'm an emotional person.
You are.
And so I cry a lot. How about you? What's the first movie you remember crying at?
I had this thing as a kid about being really tough, and I've had to learn to open up to being more emotional. And so I remember the first movie I refused to let myself cry at, which was E.T. And so during E.T., I was sitting next to my dad, who was like you, blubbering, and he would cry at every commercial. He just watched little tears. And I sat there, and I was 8 years old, and I was like, I'm not going to cry. This is fake. This isn't real. I'm not going to cry. And I didn't. And so now I cry more.
Yeah.
I think since having my son, who I adore, I cry more often. But I'm not as quick to cry as everybody else. I'm crying on the inside. But
crying on the inside.
Yeah. Okay. So
my
turn.
Here, you got it.
Yeah. Never have I ever swum with my clothes on. I did too. Yeah. I did for life savings. That wasn't that exciting. Oh, and I fell out of a boat when I was living in Massachusetts, and we had our clothes on.
Yeah, I think I probably forgot my bathing suit. I'm like, well, I'm not gonna. I don't know why, but I know I've been at least several times with my clothes on.
Yeah, totally. Okay, your turn.
All right. We're probably making crackly noises. All right. Never have I ever skipped showering for 2 days.
Oh. Totally. Yes.
Let's just say Saturday and Sunday.
Now I can't stand it, but when I was in college, I was not fun. It was a hot mess. I had a whole hippie phase in college. I also didn't wear shoes.
Oh my goodness.
My whole senior year. Oh. Never have I ever changed a car tire.
Yes.
No.
You haven't. So I took auto mechanics in high school, and my dad was really like, he wanted to make sure that we knew how to take care of ourselves. So he would teach us how to change a tire, teach us how to change, like it was really important to him that we could figure that out. And then he got us AAA, but we had to know how to do it ourselves first.
That's so smart. I just didn't learn that. No. Okay. Your turn.
All right.
Read it first.
Never have I ever cheated on a test.
I don't think I have.
I don't think I have.
I can't remember anyway.
Yeah. I mean,
maybe like in elementary
I
school.
might have like whispered to somebody near me, what's the answer? But not that I remember. Clearly.
I don't either. I don't remember. I get afraid to I won't park with my car 1 inch in the red zone, and I get kind of itchy if my meter hasn't been paid. So people think that I'm really wild, and not even really. I'm a super wimp on the inside, so I don't do that stuff. Okay. Oh, I saw this one's an Elvis Days one. Never have I ever made a prank call.
Yep. Oh yeah. Who hasn't made a prank call?
I don't think you can do it well these days because now there's caller ID. But remember when we had the rotary phone, and what was the worst? Do you remember any of the lines you said when you were?
I don't know. Is your refrigerator running?
You did not.
No, I don't know which ones. I can't really remember that far back, but I'm sure I have.
it was I remember with my friend Sabrina, we would do it a lot. And it was like the terror of getting caught and of people yelling at you on the phone. But then we'd pick up the phone and do it again every time.
Yeah. That fear is so much fun, right?
That's part of it. That's part of the fear. Yeah. That's so funny. That's great. Yeah.
All right. I think, do we have time for one more, or should we wrap?
We should probably we'll wrap up
for the commercial.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Susan.
This has been super fun, and we are excited. We have a little bit more. We
can do more after the break.
Yeah.
So we're going to go into break. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hello, my name is Tim Ray, founder of the United Intentions Foundation, where we help people like you untap their true potential and consciously create their reality with their power of their intentions. We're a 501c3 nonprofit foundation, and we need your help. Imagine a world where kids can be themselves and just create. A world where businesses thrive under mindful thinking. An education program that teaches people to tap into their mind and create their ideal world with no hesitations. That's what we are doing at the United Intentions Foundation, and that's what we are accomplishing. Each time you donate to this movement, you help fund our Imagine If program, where we talk to children in schools and teach them the benefits and powers of creating the reality they want to experience. With each donation, you also help fund our online community, where people interact and support each other through our social media portal. Here you can create intentions, show gratitude, and connect with people all over the world. Our world is suffering from a crisis of perception, from childhood to adulthood. We have to shift our perception now and begin empowering all with the power of our intention so we can live in a positive future. But this can only continue to happen if you continue to donate. So please, click a recurring or a one-time donation. Now is the time.
Welcome back to The Awakening Educator. We're having so much fun. I can't believe we're in the last 15 minutes of our show.
Yeah, it's going by quickly. I could talk to you for hours though, and I do.
And you do.
So that works out well. We had one question from Facebook that we wanted to raise up, and the question was, what are our thoughts on homeschooling? And I have a lot. Do you have any?
I worked for a homeschooling agency for a little bit while. It was like a public charter homeschool agency. And I think that there's it depends. And there's so much opportunity with homeschooling, and there's a lot of community. I think it's a huge question, and it may be something that we could look into in one of our series around From Policy to Practice.
That's a great idea.
So I think it brings up lots of questions. Just like a lot of our schools, I think there's opportunity for real innovative and learning that meets the social emotional needs of kids. I think and it brings up lots of questions. So I'm not someone who is a yes or a no on anything. I'm a person that asks, okay, well, let's look at this a little bit deeper and see where is it working, and then where is it maybe not working for some of our kiddos.
Yeah. As a teacher, I think homeschooling is really important as an option for students and families. Sometimes school just doesn't feel safe for kids, or their religious or cultural norms and views. It's hard to fit into a public education setting, and people feel more comfortable that way. And so I totally honor and respect the need for homeschooling. And I think it can be a really powerful and important tool for kids, and be the thing that helps kids to come alive.
Yeah.
I will say the concerns I have with homeschooling, they're not really concerns, but things that I've encountered in my years as a teacher. One is I had a kid that was homeschooled up until middle school, and I found that he just had a hard time adjusting in once he was with other kids to what it is to share space with other kids in a classroom. And he would sometimes struggle around games on the yard and stuff like that, because it was just he hadn't gotten used to like being with kids in that way. And I think that that's not an issue really for homeschooling. I just think if you do homeschooling, then you got to find other ways for kids to be in and around other kids so that they learn some of those skills that are needed.
Yep.
The only other thing that I ever think about, and it's why I'm often actually resistant to kids being with teachers for more than a couple of years, is that we all have our blind spots. So kids that learn from me, I'm a terrible speller. And so I didn't focus much on spelling, and my kids didn't do a lot of spelling. I was a history teacher that also didn't care that much about dates. So I wanted them to know the chronology of everything, but whether or not they could rattle off every single date and day and all of that, that wasn't as important to me. And that's fine when you're with a teacher for 1 or 2 years, but if you're with that person for a long period of time, you know, whether it's a teacher in school or you're learning from a parent at home, we all have our blind spots. So I think it's just being really intentional about knowing what your blind spots are and finding ways to incorporate them or address them and have them be balanced out. So I think it's a great option, but just as with any education venture, it just requires some intentionality.
Yeah. I think just to piggyback on that, I think that sometimes when kids and families are struggling with a particular school and they go to that option, they need a lot of support to really understand what it means to educate and homeschool, where it's more than just kids being at home. And so wanting to make sure that they have the resources that they need in order to provide a rich learning environment in the home.
Yeah, and there's lots of great resources for that. So I think it can work well, but it's as with so many things, it's intentionality.
Yep.
So I thought we would go and talk a little bit about what's coming up in the next few weeks. As we said at the beginning of the break, this is where we didn't say who's on.
Yeah, we did.
Okay. Susan and I are learning to work together on the air. We have this notion of having a 4-part series for each one of the shows moving forward, having a theme attached to it. And the first theme that we selected is history. And we selected history because I was a history teacher, but also in today's world and a lot of the stuff that's going on in our country today and in the world today, the idea of history keeps coming up more and more, of history repeating itself, of people not knowing history or the background and how that's influencing their ability to lead or move through some of these challenges. And so we felt like history would be a really important one to start talking about for our beginning.
And it puts in context some of the things that we're seeing and some of the emotional places that people are at, is that sometimes we're not remembering that folks lived in the context of their history.
Yeah, absolutely. And just understanding that. And it's been interesting actually to see it on Facebook playing out, a lot of people showing different quotes and things from historical figures and bringing it back again, and how much I've always been dismayed, especially in elementary school, where I spent a lot of my time now, how much history is kind of going quiet. And it kind of goes on the back burner. And so we always wanted to raise attention on it. So we're going to have some amazing guests.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
So the first person that's going to be coming in, who's going to be representing our policy lens, is Dr. Larry Cuban. He is he was my professor at Stanford, and he's a well-known and well-respected figure in the educational community. He writes a prolific amount of books about education, often from a historical point of view. So he'll look at a current issue and he'll go back and look at the history of it to give that context. Again, kind of what you were talking about before, like understanding things from a well-rounded point of view. And he's going to talk to us about why learning history is important. He has been a teacher and a school principal and a superintendent, and then again as a professor at Stanford for many years. And so he's going to give us that point of view of why civic engagement for kids is important. And then the next person I get the two first to. The second person we're going to talk to is a man named Dante King. And Dante is a leader of equity and diversity and inclusion training. And he provides professional development training for anybody who's interested, but he's provided it for educators as well, around how history is an important thing to know and understand when you start to think about issues of race and bias, and implicit bias in particular. And so he has a professional development course that he takes people through that's grounded deeply in American history and how our history is influencing the situation we're in today and why we need to know that. So those are our first two history peoples, and he's our first practice person.
And then we're really excited to have Nicola Berlinski, who is a 4th grade elementary school teacher. She teaches at Oakwood Elementary School in LA and Hollywood. And she is created this in-depth history project with her students. It's a year-long project. They go on a journey looking at a historical legal case and learning about history through the lens of one particular legal case. And her students do a full performing arts. They write the play, they do music, and at the end of the year, they perform this. And once we've had the opportunity to really hear from Nicola the whole process and how it unfolds. We're going to get to hear from her students and families and talk about what it was like to be a part of this process. We're going to hear a little bit of the music. We're going to see a little bit of what they did. And so we're going to have this opportunity to see both from the perspective of the educator and the perspective of the students and the families who get to engage in this. So I'm super excited to see that and hear about it.
Right. Yeah, and then the students will be the last one. So that's
students
really
will be
exciting.
our last one. Yeah.
And
we want to always make sure that we end or we include the voice of students and families as education. Sometimes those voices get lost, and we think it's really incredibly important.
So we're going to bring them forward whenever and however we can. And then the next series after that, we're already planning, and it'll be summer. And so we think this might be the Choose Your Own Adventure next series, which will be one person, kind of a study of individual people who are doing amazing things in education. So we'll do maybe a 4-parter on that.
Yep.
And then come back with some more.
Some freedom in summer. Summer.
Freedom in summer.
Things happen in summer.
Have some fun.
Summer education stuff is some of my favorite. And some of the best work that I did was in summer programs. And so I get really excited about summer.
Yeah. And it's a great time, especially when people are off doing learning, that we figured a summer one where it's a choose your own adventure means you don't have to hold on to the whole story arc as we go through these. You can just kind of enjoy it. And then we already actually have lots of exciting things planned for the rest of the year. So we're excited to get into more topics.
Yep. So we're almost coming to the end of our show, and there's a few things it's unbelievable. It went so fast. And so I want to make sure Megan shares her book, which
thank you, Susan.
Do you want to do that now?
Sure. Yeah. So part of what brought us here actually is one of the beginning parts is I wrote a book called The Educator's Guide for Using Your 3 Eyes. And it's really all about a lot of what we're talking about here. Mm-hmm. It's learning to see with 3 different points of view: your intellect, that's the first eye, your insight, which is your second eye, and your intuition, which is the third eye. And it's really all about how to use those 3 points of view to help you be more grounded, intentional as an educator, and has a big foundation in working on yourself at the same time that you work on school. So thank you for bringing that up. Yeah. And we'll be talking more about it as we go throughout the podcast, but we'd love for you to check that out if you're interested in that. We also want to have us like us on The Awakening Educator on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. As I mentioned on the Facebook page, there's a chance for you to give us some story ideas and ask us some questions, and let us engage with you. And whenever there are extras that we can give back to you all, we'll have them as links built within there.
Absolutely.
So you can visit us also. For me, if you want to learn more about my book, you can go to www.your3eyes.com. And you can also follow Your 3 Eyes, your with the number 3 eyes, on Twitter and Instagram. You can also follow us through United Intentions. And so do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So UI Media Network offers a host of advertising opportunities. So we don't want to forget that if you are interested, for all budgets. And we're also on Binge Network TV. Visit www.bingenetworktv.tv and look for UI TV under channel 12783. Our new channels featured on Apple TV, Google Play, Roku, Amazon Fire, and more. And I believe you can catch us on wherever you catch your podcasts.
And we're also accessible on Facebook's UI Media Network page. And you can look for us there and follow us live in that moment. We wanted to end with some gratitude. So first, we wanted to thank Davey and Suchi and Jesse and Wahid for their production support. We wanted to thank Jennifer Kramer and Tim Ray for making this opportunity available for us.
I want to thank Megan for bringing this opportunity, including me in this opportunity. I'm so grateful for your partnership and your friendship. I also want to thank my family, who has been very supportive of this. So
yeah. Here we go. I want to thank you, Susan, for joining me. It's been such a treasure to have you here. And I want to thank my beautiful son, Malcolm, who is,
Yep. One more thing. Thanks, No Small Children, for making your music available to us.
Course, yes.
So thank you, No Small Children.
No Small Children is our music background. So we really appreciate that. And we thank you for joining us.
Class is dismissed. Wasn't that fun? Susan and Megan are always happy to greet you on the next episode of The Awakening Educator, every other Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Watch all our shows anytime from anywhere in the world at uimediaapp.com. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Spreaker at United Intentions to be up to date with the show. Have any questions you'd like to ask? Maybe you have knowledge you'd like to share. Email us at contact@unitedintentions.org, and we will read your comments live on air. Education is the foundation for a brighter future. Open your eyes to The Awakening Educator, only on the UI Media Network. The United Intentions Foundation and its associates take no responsibility for the opinions and statements